Welcome to Techtastic, where we navigate the intersection of technology and business, uncovering innovations that redefine our world.
Here we are. We made it, which has been a while in the making, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my background is in solar energy.
Nice.
I started a company in Hawaii. We developed our own software for it because at the time there was no real solar specific software,
Yeah.
And it really took off. I mean, I borrowed 250 grand from a friend to start it. And by our third year, we were doing 150 million in sales.
Fantastic.
It sort of, I had this philosophy previously, but, really fleshed it out doing this project and a few others, is that, like the cheapest and best way to grow really any business is to come up with a way for other people to use your ecosystem to just kill it, to make more money than they've ever made before,
Yeah.
And if you do it well, your Salesforce or Amazon Web Services or, you pick a company that's really done well and this is what they've done well, right? They've come up with a way for other businesses to just kill it using their systems. And so having that as a focus, as you develop your go-to-market strategy and, obviously at first you have to sort of handhold the whole first business relationships and all of that, but you build all the infrastructure with the goal of, creating a business in a box for a given entity or a given set of individuals or what have you, right? And that's how you make something just take off exponentially.
I love that, and it's good to hear you say that because we're sitting in an interesting spot today. So the company's a year old, but a year ago is when I wrote the original prototype for what we would eventually start building towards. And that original prototype informed a lot. So I believed very strongly that all of a sudden we have the ability for human beings to talk to a computer the way we talk and for it to give you the results of what you need, whatever that was, in a way that you understand because it understands you. You don't have to talk geek anymore. I don't have to write code anymore. And I went out to prove that to be true or false right away. And what I realized was it's actually false at the moment, but the gap between here and there is not as far as I thought it was. So, okay, great. I built a thing called Brother. It can write code. You tell it what you want. It asks you a bunch of questions. It spits something out and it works. Yay. That's cute. It's a nice toy. But if you actually want to build something that's worth something, you've got to do the next thing, which is all businesses are integrations. You don't write custom code in isolation. It's not greenfield, right? It's full of brownfield. You've got ERPs and whatever else. You've got all these systems that you actually integrate. That's what software is today. So we need to solve that problem. That's a harder problem. So we started down that path. But along the way, we ran into a bunch of problems that I think are industry-wide. If you're trying to incorporate modern large language models and AI into your enterprise application, there's a series of problems you're always going to run into. You've got this non-deterministic thing, this thing that doesn't translate into true or false, right? It can come back one time and say this, and the next time say a radically different thing that's also still true, but a different way of saying it. How do you write tests for that? Because your system has to know it's a good answer or a bad answer. How do you know?
Yeah.
So we ran into that problem hard. So we took a big step back, took our alpha down, and said we have to solve that. Now, the spot we're sitting on right now is that itself is a very interesting product potentially, but that's not what we've been asked to do. We've got a lot of partners now that are coming and saying, we want to solve this specific problem in this AI space because we're a managed service provider, or we're a solutions integrator, we're a service company, and we'd like to be a product company, but we don't know how to do that. And we sure as hell don't know how to do it in this modernized AI automated world.
Yeah.
So the opportunity sitting in front of us is really an A or B. Do we build this universal problem and take that to market? Or do we have to solve that anyway, which we do? And we start building these products for other people and do a big rev share on it because they've already got tons of revenue, right? I can just take your sales funnel. I can make you way more profitable. I can give you something you've never had, which is monthly recurring because you're a service-based company, right? And do a revenue split on it and white label it. I don't care. I can be plumbing in the wall.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. That's what we're doing today is working with some of those big partners to identify if that's really a viable path, or if we need to build something in isolation as a product that we take to market that has mass appeal.
So the path that you're exploring is with like consulting groups?
Yeah, so CDW is the biggest of them that's come to us and said, we have a solutions integrator, which means they work with like Amazon to implement Amazon's AWS with some large company.
Yeah.
So Nike wants to move from their own data centers or some other cloud provider to Amazon, and they pay this company to do that for them.
Yeah.
Right? There are a lot of those companies. It's like
There's
a $300 billion a year industry to do that.
That's why Amazon Web Services is what it is, because it made a path for companies like that to go kill it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I have a friend who owns one of those companies. Her name is Dow Jensen. It's like an Amazon Web Services reseller, and she says the reason why she has her customers is because if they go direct to Amazon, which they can, they end up paying a hell of a lot more, because they're not aware of all the little programs and this and that, and like ways to configure their business activity such that they have the most efficient bill with AWS, right? And then the other one is a forum mate of mine, Steve Wadsworth. He invests in these types of companies, and he has a company that he bought that is it's called DCI.
I know DCI for some reason.
I'm doing consulting with them right now, DCI, on their sales funnel. And what they do is accounts payable, right? Like big companies have these problems where they have all these disputes, and they have to figure out how to pay their vendors, and so they manage that whole process with their software. But when I'm talking to them, their software is like kludgy as hell. Like, and each big customer, it's not like a uniform product across all their customers. It's like each customer has its own siloed service,
Yeah.
And they're all huge customers, right? And it's all like a big account. But now as they're trying to grow, they're trying to get things more streamlined and organized. And, it's like a total reorg, right, of their whole company.
Yeah.
So when I first heard about the way Kim described it was, you have this AI tool that goes and figures out technical debt and figures out how to streamline code and, all of that, right? I thought, well, this is like a perfect fit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, the guy who's backing them, like if it works, the guy who's backing them is like, this is the kind of companies he backs, right? Yours is the kind of companies he backs.
Yeah.
So it's like a perfect fit for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah, we do. That is our focus area for the product we've been building for some time.
Yeah.
And the problem we ran into is why it doesn't currently work, and we had to pull it back and then re-engage with it. So we had to solve that problem. And while we were solving that problem is when we got approached by other parties that are like, well, hold on. You have this thing that already does what we do as a business. We would love to license that and co-sell it, white label it, do whatever. Yeah. And we're like, well, shit, excuse my language. That's a great way of doing some dilutionary activity of bringing on investors, have our customers start paying for it and allow us to continue to develop against it. Our goal is still to get to the brownfield of software development where, all the messes lie and clean it up. Yeah. But we're not at the point where that product is ready for that kind of use case, which is going to take a little bit longer than expected, because there's a series of failures you're going to hit along the way that we have to overcome, and we're still getting our way through those. I'm really curious about getting back to what you were talking about, what you did, the software company on the solar side. Yeah. 25 years ago, I wrote one for wind development that we were trying to corner the market on all the available spots for commercial wind. Mm-hmm. And it just did a bunch of overlays on the practicality based on is there transmission lines nearby, who owns it, is it public or private land, etc. Yeah. That was one of my better exits, because the companies, Vestas bought us, or Vesta, I don't know how to say it, but they bought us because they were trying to do that themselves.
Yeah, find project sites. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that industry because it was so full of hobbyists that you could come in with a decent business mind and be like, crushing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so my current thing that I'm doing it's called Safe Connect Solar. And we came up with a way to make residential solar an appliance instead of a construction service. So currently, when you buy solar, you buy it from a contractor.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason is because of safety. Your life safety, your fire safety is managed by that permitting process, right? An electrical engineer draws up the plans, it gets submitted to the city. Contractor signs on that they're going to build it according to those plans. They come and inspect it. The city's liable for the thing getting built to code, all this crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
But every other thing in your house, literally every other thing in your house, the safety is managed through a national safety certification for that device through a NERDL, a nationally recognized testing lab like UL or CTL or one of those, right?
Right.
And so I decided someone has to go through the fucking brain damage of making this getting a national safety certification for solar as an appliance. So I started doing that, and it took a lot longer than I thought. But here we are now at the finish line. Like, we got a change to the National Electrical Code, which was brutal.
Yeah.
It took 5 years, but that came out in the 2020 code release. And then I was able to get UL to finish our certification, and now that's ready to publish as a new standard for solar as an appliance, right? Pre-engineered. Wow. So I'm like running around, like trying to figure out the right path. I'm talking to, because it's a heavy lift, right? I mean, it's like 10 million plus to bring this thing to market, right? Yeah. So I'm talking to, strategic investors. I got a German distributor that wants to take over the market and sees this as a differentiated path to do it. I'm talking to some different, equipment manufacturers, talking to a venture group, which, I'm not a big fan of venture, but, gotta keep it in the mix because it's time, Yeah. And so I've got all these negotiations going, and I want to be able to hang on because this residential solar appliance, it's going to be huge, man. It's a $2 trillion market, you know, and like being able to set up box batteries down and plug it in, being able to have standardized infrastructure installed in the house that lets you just bring a solar system and go click, is the way it's going to go. And it's going to cut the cost in half, and it's going to explode. And, like in Hawaii, when we did this, went from 2% of homes having solar to 40% of single family detached homes having solar in under 5 years. And that's when we bring the cost down, that same explosion is going to happen on the national scale, where everybody, school teachers, firemen, everybody.
The only reason we don't have it on our place is we live on an island outside of Seattle, which means we have power disruption.
Bainbridge?
No, we're on Whidbey.
Okay.
Yeah, you have outages all the dang time, right? Yeah. Like I had a 1 week in the middle of winter a couple of years ago where we were out of power. I have a barn, which is a brand new building built up to modern code. I've got a round pen, which is a much bigger building built to like extreme code. Yep. I have a house that's rather large. All of them have roof surfaces that I could put something on, but I also have industrial power grade transformer at the corner because the well for the entire region's on my property, it's on my land. And so we've got significant infrastructure in place to build out a much larger solar field or whatever we wanted to do. But it was always the permitting process that stopped us because it takes so damn long. And it's so expensive while you're waiting on it because you're still paying the contractors to sit around and do nothing while you're waiting on it. If you had an appliance where I didn't have to go through that entire process, or at least it was significantly reduced, we would have done it years ago. Awesome. Todd, pleasure, man. Let's keep it going.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye. And that's a wrap for this episode of Techtastic. I want to thank you personally for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious. Thank you for listening. If you are new here and enjoyed the content, please subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you are a regular listener, thanks so much for your continued support.
Overwhelmed by tech debt? Discover Vala AI, the solution to tech challenges with the simplicity of a click. No engineering background? No problem. Vala AI enables anyone to effortlessly tackle tech issues, freeing up your time from tech headaches. Make tech debt vanish with Vala AI, where your tech solutions are just a click away.